Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. A day after former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was sentenced to death on charges of crimes against humanity, Dhaka and other major cities remained calm despite a nationwide shutdown called by the Awami League. Bangladesh stayed quiet but tense as the security forces maintained strict control across key urban centers. The shutdown was called to protest the death sentence handed to Hasina by the International Crimes Tribunal. No violence was reported today, and in sharp contrast with yesterday, when two people were killed as massive clashes erupted in several parts of the nation. Hasina was sentenced to death in her absence on Monday after a month long trial that found her guilty of ordering a deadly crackdown on a student-led uprising last year. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the show at this point in time is Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former diplomat, Major General Sudhakar Ji, Senior Geopolitical and Strategic Defense Expert with us on the show, Pramit Pal Chaudhary, South Asia Head, Eurasia Group, Professor Madhav Nalapat, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian, and last but not the least, Sumit Peer, political commentator, is with us on the program as well. Professor Nalapat, I will begin with you. Well, right now, as I said in my opening monologue, that there is no violence being reported out of Bangladesh, but could this be the lull before the storm? The Awami League and of course the impending elections in Bangladesh in February, could it lead to a deadly combination which Bangladesh at this point in time can definitely not afford to?
Look, I'd like to point out, Beneath, that Sheikh Hasina did not appear in person before this International Criminal Tribunal out of a very justified fear that she would be held and put in captivity as soon as the court delivers a verdict, which was preordained, because quite frankly, I don't believe evidence was recorded or allowed to be recorded, may I point out, you have to go to Bangladesh authorities would have put a clamp on that, on anything favorable to Sheikh Hasina, but only those who are very adverse to her would have been encouraged to present themselves, and that would have been what the court heard. So it's an ex parte judgment, quite very frankly. And the reality is, as far as Sheikh Hasina is concerned, if she ever returns to Bangladesh, that's the end of Sheikh Hasina. Even before this guilty verdict, even before the sentence of death, which I'm really wondering is extraordinary, an international court sentencing someone to death, because the death penalty is outlawed in several parts of the world, although it is there in some countries, I must say. But I would like to point out that this entire trial, so-called trial, was a farce. And what is happening in Bangladesh now, I mean, the Awami League has been completely, they have been proscribed. They are an outlaw organization under the law, under the new law. And frankly, we don't know what the new law is. The new law is what the ministers wanted to be, in which, frankly, I think there's a rubber stamp in the name of Muhammad Yunus, who rubber stamps the laws. And under those laws, there is no question that she will get the same kind of kangaroo court that she appeared to get in the International Criminal Tribunal, and the death sentence was speedily carried out. You know, we all remember what happened in Pakistan to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was the prime minister, and we all know what happened when Ziaul Haq took over from the military. This is an authoritarian government, and well, Bhutto had his faults, but the fact of the matter is that he was hanged in a very peremptory manner, and I think the same fate would await Sheikh Hasina. So I would say very frankly, Vineet, I don't believe there's any justification in sending Sheikh Hasina back to a country where she is under sentence of death, and the only question of whether, it's not whether anymore, it's when it will be carried out. So it's not whether, it's when the death sentence will be carried out. And I therefore, in the interest of justice, in the interest of human rights, quite frankly, I don't believe Sheikh Hasina should ever be sent back to Bangladesh so long as the government there is run by people and who have basically outlawed her party and who are therefore not going to hold free elections, because if you hold free elections and the largest party is not allowed to contest, what kind of a quote unquote free election is there? It's a completely rigged election, and a rigged election that will bring back the same authoritarian extremists to power. So I would like to say, Vineet, there's a compelling case not to send Sheikh Hasina back. There's no question about that. Thank you, Vineet.
You're absolutely right, sir. And we're also getting some news at this point in time that Bangladesh has been calm, but security forces are on high alert. They are monitoring, they are in fact keeping an eye on all major cities following the Awami League's call for a nationwide shutdown that has come through. Of course, the shutdown, like I said earlier on, was in protest to this ban being handed out to the Awami League, as well as the death sentence which was announced against the erstwhile leader, Sheikh Hasina. Ambassador Mukherjee, what do you make of this? In fact, her son, Mr. Sajib Wazid, has said that there will be violent protests if the ban on the Awami League is not lifted. This is a showdown that Bangladesh does not need at this point in time. It's a nation of 170 million people. They're doing extremely well when it comes to garment exports to global brands. This could jeopardize their economy. They also were given a bailout package of $4.7 billion by the IMF. That could also be disrupted, and future help from certain quarters which has come through to Bangladesh may also be jeopardized if something like this happens. What is your take of what might happen in Bangladesh?
First, discuss the death sentence. The first important point is that Sheikh Hasina never formally resigned as Prime Minister. Secondly, there is no provision in the Bangladesh constitution at present to allow an interim regime to continue within 6 months. Therefore, Mohammad Yunus's government is illegal. Sheikh Hasina, having not resigned, is still technically the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Thirdly, this court which was set up is a kangaroo court where the lawyer who was appointed was against Sheikh Hasina's wishes. He presented perspectives that were contrary to his client's interests. It was preordained, and I don't even believe that if she goes back, she would be hanged. If she hadn't left Bangladesh at the time and the hour that she did, I am sure she would be gang raped, tortured, and lynched. Because the horrific scenes that we saw of people dragging out her undergarments, exhibiting them to the public, taking out her clothes, etc., is a clear indication that she would be turned over to the mob. There would be no question of hanging. That Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was hanged. It was very arbitrary, and he told the man who had come to hang him in Hindi, "Isko jaldi khatam karo." I remember reading about it. He was hanged. She would not be hanged. She'll be lynched if she goes back. Thirdly, there is an extradition treaty between India and Bangladesh, which clearly rules out her extradition if it is based on political purposes, political reasons, which is clear that it is political. There is therefore no question of India ever handing over Sheikh Hasina under these circumstances. Let me come to the second question of whether there will be mob violence. Awami League is a grassroots organization spread out all across Bangladesh, an area that I know very well since my ancestors come from there, Dhaka, Bikrampur. There will be huge violence in Bangladesh. Its economy has already gone down because those garment factories that you are referring to, they were owned by Hindus who in the early days of Sheikh Hasina's departure were lynched. Many of the garment factories have shut down. The economy is in a downward spiral, and the war that will break out because he is not going to lift the ban. Yunus is going to drag Bangladesh very close to civil war, which is not good for Bangladesh and it's not good for us because we will have to then put an extra battalion of the Indian Army there to prevent people from trying to cross over the porous Bangladesh India border. Therefore, the situation is very serious, and the elections are supposed to be held in February. If they are held without the Awami League, the BNP will win, not the Jamaat.
Hmm.
No
Okay.
matter what Yunus tries to do, his days are numbered. He knows that very soon he too will have to quickly get onto a helicopter or a flight and go back to George Soros, who is the man who put him up. His days are numbered. We have to see this through coolly and calmly and not get upset and understand the reality, which is to destabilize our northeast, to destabilize the chicken's neck, and to open up an active front on the eastern border so that we are forced to move some army from the China border and the Pakistan border and the Myanmar border. That is the game plan. But fortunately, since there is an active war going on
Fair enough,
between
ma'am.
Afghanistan and Pakistan, hopefully the Pakistanis will get trapped in a game of their own making. Vineet.
All right, Sumit Peer, your thoughts on what's going on over here. Do you think that Sheikh Hasina is likely to meet the fate which has been met by a number of leaders in Islamic countries in the past as well, perhaps barring Mussolini in Italy after World War II? Talk about Gaddafi or talk about Idi Amin, who of course died in Saudi Arabia. But if he continued to live in Uganda, he would have been lynched as well. But she is not any one of them. Sheikh Hasina has worked to take Bangladesh to the next level. If it has become a power in terms of exporting cotton products across the world, Sheikh Hasina and her party and her supporters and her cabinet had a lot to do with it.
Vinny, thank you for having me on your show. And a very interesting question to begin with. Look, it doesn't matter who you are in Islamic theocracies. Ultimately, they will find a reason to kill you, eliminate you, or send you to gallows. So it's a very basic mentality. Look, when she left for India or had to go for India, I would say, I would not say fled Bangladesh. Wakrul Zaman, who is married to his cousin sister, told her, Appa, you have 20 minutes. If you don't leave, I won't be able to protect you. And these mobs will come and lynch you to death. I mean, this is on record. 20 minutes है आपके पास, 20 minutes leave, otherwise I can't do anything. Her bodyguards told her, ma'am, leave 20 minutes, bus, we can't do anything. Now, you see, today, what is Bangladesh? Bangladesh is not going to become Pakistan, Vineet. Bangladesh is becoming Afghanistan. In Pakistan, still you have an army who controls all these jihadis. Now, Bangladesh is divided between all these jihadis. What you have? Hafazat Islam, you have Jamaat, you have the Hizbul Tahrir, you have all the Middle Eastern jihadi organizations there, you have ISKP there, and you have Chota Mota, Chota Bhai ka kurta, Bade Bhai ka pajama. You have so many of them running there scot-free. All the jihadis who were in jail, hardcore criminals, they were let out of the jail. And this Yunus is the biggest Islamist or jihadi in Bangladesh. Bina Dadi Mooch ka mullah. Don't go by, he doesn't have a bear and a mustache. He's the biggest radicalized jihadi there. With all these people running scot-free, you know, death can be very painful and very horrible. They already started blaming India. You are keeping her, you are sheltering and all that. Look, India will never ever give Hasina. Those dreams they have to let that go. And if they think that, amidst having India's patronage, they will go and just ceremonially hang her or kill her to send a message. That is what these people have in mind. This man is an American, what is American stooge. Now he has the blessings of Chinese intelligence, and today he's also blessings of Pakistani ISI. So Bangladesh there is Chinese intelligence is there, Pakistani intelligence is there, and American intelligence is there. So it has become a cocktail of disaster, if I can call it. And there is no strong or a powerful army which can control any of them. So eventually it will become into Afghanistan, where these feudal lords and warlords control each and individual part of the territory. Somebody is responsible for something, somebody is responsible for anything. The message which we get from Bangladesh is there used to be only one Muslim country, dominated country, which was secular, which called itself secular. Now that secularity is gone. Koi Islamic country secular nahi hai bhai. There's nothing called secularism and Islamic country. There was only one in the world. It is gone. Now you are very sure that the kangaroo courts or the mullah courts or the Sharia courts have taken, control of the situation. Look, we need 8 or 10 days back. Do you remember there were 11 crude bomb attacks in Dhaka? crude bomb attacks. I was of the opinion they have thrown these bombs just to send a message. They didn't use those high grade explosives. Nobody took the responsibility. But the message was very clearly sent to the tribunal. If you don't rule in our favor, we'll come and burn the whole Dhaka. That was the message was clearly sent, and it was all the Yunus's gang. This was all done by his gang and his cronies, which did all those attacks. So even by crucifying Hasina, if they think they're going to achieve anything, they're not going to achieve anything. This country will deteriorate much, much faster now. I think she was the only hope they had. There was the only last bet she had. Now, if you think people like Yunus and Jamaat and Hizbul Tahrir and Hifazat Islam, they're the people who can bail them out and make them Beirut and make them, Rwanda and Somalia, they're entirely up to them.
Yeah, you're quite right, Sumit. In fact, we have some more news coming in at this point in time. Members of the Bangladesh Army, the border guard, Bangladesh, the BGBs as they are called, and police have been deployed in front of the International Crimes Tribunal to ensure security following the conviction of deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and two of her top aides. An armored personnel carrier was also positioned near the High Court gate. Authorities said that the deployment aims to prevent any untoward incident and ensure smooth movement around the court premises. General Sudhakarji, what do you make of this volatile situation that we are witnessing in Bangladesh at this point in time? Sheikh Hasina has, taken refuge in India. We've had many international leaders or people, proponents of international causes, take refuge in India, and India has never snitched on them. We have never handed them back without due course of the law or the moral practices that exist when it comes to handing over such leaders. But the fact of the matter is that because of Sheikh Hasina, there has been a friction, a sore point between both the countries. Is that something that India is going to consider when it comes to the matter of extraditing Sheikh Hasina back to Bangladesh?
Good evening, Vinit. Thank you for taking me for your show, and compliments to very distinguished and esteemed co-panelists. And without meaning to contradict anybody, if at all I sound like one, allow me to give a perspective, which I understand as a military man. First and foremost thing, India should never extradite Sheikh Hasina. And this is going to be, pushing her into the gallows. A lady, a leader who has stood by India's national interest for 15 long years in all critical venture. I think India has got a role and responsibility to extend and make sure that Bangladesh is gradually drifted back to some kind of a normalcy by not sending Sheikh Hasina back, but by ensuring that the instruments of power who are driving the interim government to do all these avoidable activities in Bangladesh comes to a stop. One. Number two, technically, legally speaking, being a military man, if I have to read between the lines with eye for detail, first and foremost thing is International Criminal Tribunal is a local, a Bangladesh, or national entity which came into existence in 2010 simply to try those Pakistani criminals and the Bangladeshi collaborators who were responsible for the genocide. And it was a demand and aspiration of the people of Bangladesh, which was long pending. At that point in time, of the people, by the people, for the people, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh thought it expedient to push it hard and get the damn thing into Pakistan. And quite a few of Jamaitis and those responsible for the genocide have been tried and they have been put to death, to the best of my knowledge. By doing so, I don't think any leadership in any kind of democracy in Muslim world would brand this particular course of action as something which will invite a kind of a formation of ICT and also awarding death penalty to the former Prime Minister. Third point, the legality also, when you go into the Constitution, there is nothing like an interim government. The Constitution of Bangladesh, as per my understanding, allows for caretaker government. If I, perhaps the ambassador ma'am and very eminent panelists, they will bear me out if I'm going wrong. Instead of a caretaker government, there is nothing like interim government. And if there is nothing like interim government, if it has not been elected by the people, for the people, and of the people, by democratic norms and mandate, then they do not have any authority or power to select representatives to man the ICT. If that has not been gone in, then this is a highly questionable act which should be raised at appropriate level. I am given to understand there is a provision for Sheikh Hasina to take the matter up to Supreme Court, but despite that provision, I would still recommend to Government of India not to send her back. Next point that comes to my mind, Vineet, is that the current situation is not volatile, it is super volatile. It's hostile and it is very dangerous. Bangladesh is not like Pakistan. Bangladesh is to be seen as an integral part of India. It is not even a backyard. Siliguri being where it is and being dominated by three shoulders, one from Nepal, Damak, one from Jaferi Ridge, Bhutan, and another from the what do you call that division, Lal Monir Hat division, whatever you call it, that jutting out towards the Siliguri corridor, there is no option but to actually identify the critical red lines and prepare for action which will not only prevent, it should eradicate all such eventualities cropping up in future. India should be prepared
right,
to
so
take such kind of countermeasure
right.
that
Let me
Bangladesh then
quickly rope in Pramit into this conversation as well. We do have a paucity of time. Pramit, what's your assessment of what's going on in Bangladesh, and can it lead to some sort of a dangerous trend which Bangladesh also witnessed when this crisis started last year?
No, I think what we'll see right now, the Awami is effectively has been eviscerated. Tens of thousands of its members are in jail, so is its leader. Much of its leadership is in exile. They probably command, if you're looking at some of the polls, the Bangladeshi polls are not very credible right now, somewhere about 20 to 30% of the vote share if they were a free and fair election right now. But the problem, I think, for what we will see is that these riots are really initiate the campaign for the election, which will probably be held in February, and it will be basically Jamaat versus the BNP. But what is interesting is that you look at what the BNP is doing. The BNP is wooing the Awami vote. They have declined to criticize the Awami for the riots. In fact, they criticized the interim government, saying that they were not handling law and order properly. Their leaders have reached out, from what I understand, to some of the Awami members and said, look, our common enemy is Jamaat. We are secular. We may have had our differences in the past, but fundamentally we don't have, our view on the Islamicization of Bangladesh is the same. And they're basically the party of business. They're the big pro-business party in Bangladesh. They've also reached out to the Indian government and said, we can be your new partner. So the game, I think, at least for the medium term, will be an election in February where you'll see these two parties come together and at least a portion of the Awami vote shift to the BNP. The two combined together will probably be more than enough to guarantee that Jamaat is basically ensures that Jamaat does not come to power. The nightmare would be a scenario in which if, for example, Sheikh Hasina's boycott succeeds and a large chunk of the Awami vote or other people decide not to join the election, Jamaat wins, then we will have a major threat on our hands because they are strictly, very deeply aligned with Pakistan.
All right,
and
fair enough.
very negative about us.
Fair enough. We have some breaking news coming in as well. The situation